Okay, so we basically finished what's called Muktza Machzor and Kiss. Muktza Machzor and Kiss, that is completely Muktza because it's basically you're afraid of using it for any other reason. Next type of Muktza is divided into two parts. It's called Muktza Machmes Gufei. It's something that inherently is Muktza because it's not considered a utensil unless if it's designated for making it a utensil. So yesterday we just started mentioning, for instance, money. But before we get to money, like for instance, sticks, stones, twigs, they're basically not considered a keli. If they're not considered a keli, they're completely muktzah. Unless if you prepared it, we said before Shabbos, for usage on Shabbos or permanent usage, so then it wouldn't be muktzah because you designated it as a non-muktzah object. Okay, so for instance, money, all money is muktzah on Shabbat. Coins, currency, metals, any type of metal, like strips of metal, are basically not functionable. They're not called a keli, they're not called a utensil. So therefore they're muktzah. Now what happens if somebody, we learned yesterday, want to make a necklace out of a coin, so then because you designate, now you designated in thought, you actually did an action to make it into a necklace, so therefore that wouldn't be muktzah at all. The same thing, branches of a tree, and this is a whole separate din. You're not allowed to make use of a tree on Shabbos. You're not allowed to lean against a tree on Shabbos. Not because of muktzah. There's another din about trees. You're not allowed to lean against a tree. If somebody has, let's say, a hammock hanging, and it's hanging from the branch of the tree to another branch of another tree, you know, those things that you can lay on, you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos because you're using the tree. Very briefly, I'm not learning those dinim now, but if, let's say, you knock in a hook into the tree, and then you connect the hammock to that hook, and then on the other side the same thing, so then you would be allowed to, because then you're not using the actual tree, you're using an offshoot of the tree. But that's again, we're not learning those things. But branches of a tree are completely muktzah. I mean, especially if they didn't fall down, you definitely cannot pull them off on Shabbos. That's a biblical malacha. But you can, branches of muktzah. Now what happens if somebody, let's say, has a loose branch, and they want to use it to chase away flies? Don't forget, in the olden times, they didn't have all the sophisticated fly chasers we have today. They were very brilliant. They came up with brilliant ideas. So they would take branches and just, put... So if you designated it for that, so then it's not muktzah anymore. You can't kill a fly on Shabbos, though. In fact, but it's not for now, but a dead body of a person or animals are completely muktzah on Shabbos. Sometimes a human corpse is allowed to be moved for kavod hames, because if it's in a disrespectful place, but generally speaking, a dead body is muktzah, dead animals are muktzah. So sometimes you can have a dead mouse, a dead bug, it might be muktzah. The only reason there's a reason you can sometimes clean up muktzah if it's what's called gader shorei, that we'll learn all about that. Dead animals dead rodents are completely muktzah. Wooden matches, and it's interesting, machlekes in contemporary halacha, wooden matches, keli shemalachta le'isr, or is it muktzah machmes gufei? Is it, because normally a match is made to make fire, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. But the question is a wooden match a keli, which is b'chlal, a keli shemalach, or maybe it's not even a keli. If it's not a keli, then it's completely muktzah. But let's say a lighter, that would be a keli. It's keli shemalachta le'isr. But a lighter wouldn't be muktzah machmeh because it's a keli. It's a vessel.
What makes this a keli? What makes a lighter?
It doesn't put a piece of stick, a piece of wood.
What?
It's a piece of wood. Nothing to it. Yeah, but it's not. This is a thing by itself, a whole keli. What? Jug of oil? Yeah, but you can put oil on a salad. And I'm saying non-cooking, like olive oil. Sorry, cooking oil. That you can't put on any other things? I don't know. Is there something, I don't know. You have to ask the women in the kitchen, or the men that cook. I don't know, is there something called a cooking oil that you don't use it for? Maybe, ich weiß nicht. Okay, candles is also another interesting machlekes in Poskim. A plain candle that wasn't lit on Shabbos. A box of candles, these candles, right? Is it not, we're talking about plain candles, not these things. These are glasses that are a keli. It's a keli shemalachta l'isser. But a plain candle, is a candle a keli shemalachta l'isser, or is it not even a keli? It's a question in contemporary poskim. So a lot of poskim are machmed that it's completely muktzah, you shouldn't move it at all. I'll give you another example. A bar of soap is not a keli, so it's completely muktzah. Laundry detergents like soap and powders, for laundry detergents that it's a powder, it's not, things like that. Cigarettes and cigars are, so machlekes again, many poskim say cigarettes and cigars, not only is a keli shemalachta l'isser, but because you're not allowed to smoke on Shabbos, it's even further than that. It's not a keli b'chlal. It's not a utensil that's usable.
So you're not allowed to move it?
No.
With your elbow?
With your elbow you can move muktza. We'll learn about that later. That we're talking about the din of muktza, not of touching it, but of moving it. Now there's another din, this din now that Rebbe brings down. Blank sheets of paper are muktza. Now, sheets of paper that have written things on it are not muktza. If it's things you're allowed to read on Shabbos. We'll learn later in muktza, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to read on Shabbos. For instance, anything business-oriented, any flyer, anything that has to do with contracts, anything that has to do with business, in the broad sense of the word, anything that has to do with contracts, anything that has to do with math things or even newspapers, even those people that permit reading newspapers on Shabbos, which not everybody permits reading a newspaper on Shabbos, but the ads you definitely can't read. Because the ads in the newspaper are basically business oriented. They're trying to convince you to buy. It's buying and selling. So for instance, the Wall Street Journal, which is primarily Wall Street Journal, so then everybody says you can't read the Wall Street Journal on Shabbos. Because it's all business oriented. That's what it's made for. It's made to talk about business. You're not allowed to read anything that you can't do. You can't do business on Shabbos.
These Jewish flyers that come at the end, they have all these ads.
So the same thing, by the way, is with the Jewish papers. Let's say the Jewish press, Ami magazine, Mishpacha magazine, or all those from magazines. Whatever you say, Jerusalem Post. How about the New York? Some newspapers are what's called Muktza Machmas Mius. They're despicable. So that's also Muktza, despicable Muktza. What? What? The Bible? The Goyish Bible is Muktza a whole week. You can move it. It's not a din of Muktza. It's a different concept of Muktza. Not Muktza, Shabbos Muktza. Muktza, weekday Muktza. I know.
So the Wall Street Journal per se himself is muktza.
Right. We'll see later about, there's a whole section here about things you're allowed to read. Are you allowed to read novels on Shabbos? It's not so simple, by the way. Are you allowed to read novels on Shabbos? You're allowed to, what books exactly you're allowed to read on Shabbos? The Alter Rebbe has a lot, push it in his time, things that you're allowed to read, you're not allowed to read. There's a lot of issues. If it's Divrei Chochma, it's one din. If not Divrei Chochma, it's another din. It's a lot of issues that we'll learn. But anyway, if a newspaper or anything like that you're not allowed to read on Shabbos, so then there's a din of Muktza. It's very simple. Okay, but blank sheets of paper are Muktza because it's not a keli. In fact, Now, what happens if you have...
Is that today?
Yeah. I mean, the Alter Rebbe says... Not a paper plate. Paper plate is a plate.
No, a paper plane. Kids like the...
Oh, so now the question is, are you allowed to make a paper plane on Shabbos? That's a separate issue. But you don't have to stop the kids when... A lot of Chabad weeklies end up as paper planes here. Yeah, we know that.
No, sometimes adults.
Adults are also bored. During the rabbi's speech, when they're bored, instead of falling asleep, they make paper airplanes and they throw at each other during the speech. Yeah, I know that. But the Alter Rebbe also says a blank piece of paper. Now, even in this, there's different things. For instance, you can have a very expensive paper, like artist's paper, or a very expensive writing paper, like parchment paper, something very expensive. That's Muktza, Machzor, Chesed, and Kiss also. Because you're not going to use very expensive paper to make a paper airplane. I mean, you're just not. It's designated for writing, for expensive type of artistic things or things like that. But even blank now, so there's a whole discussion. What happens if you have a notebook, okay? So in a loose leaf binder, let's say that you open up and you can put papers in and out. So then many poskim write that the blank sheets of paper are muktza. Because the papers are made to go in and out, put them in and out, so every sheet of paper is a different thing. It's not like a spiral notebook, right? The spiral, it's all one book. Okay? So now you have, let's say, you wrote, part of the book is written, the spiral notebook. Part of the book is written, part of the book is not written. So over there, because it's all one book, so therefore the blank papers are not muktza. But many poskim write, if you have a spiral, not a spiral, what's it called? Loose leaf binder. A loose leaf binder, that the papers come in and out, each one individually, so then each paper is separate. So then you wouldn't be allowed to move the blank, according to these poskim. You're not allowed to move blank pieces of paper to get to the written pieces of paper. Okay, 1 second more. The bricks, cinder blocks are completely muktza. Wallpaper, fixture, tiles, paneling, molding, plumbing fixtures, which are going to be used in construction, are automatically muktza. That's written openly in Shulchan Aruch. Anything that you're going to be using in construction, I'll give you an example. What happens if you're planning to put down a new floor in your kitchen with tiles? Okay? And they delivered the tiles on Friday. Okay? Now somebody's coming to your house for Shabbos, and you want to show them the tile, what you're going to put down on the floor, the tile, the new tile for the floor. So then it's also completely muktza. You're not allowed to show it. You can't pick it up. You can show it to them without touching it, without moving it. I mean. But you can't pick it up and say, here, you see, this is going to put it on the floor and look at it, because it's muktza. It's designated for, the tile itself is nothing. You're going to put it into construction, it's completely muktza. It's like bricks and all types of things. Rugs, okay, throw away carpets that that are not installed. It's not like these rugs, whatever, huh? Or no, just plain rugs that what do they call them? Whatever you call them. They're not installed, they're connected to the wall. Yeah, throw, what do they call them? Whatever. They're not muktza on Shabbos. Okay, any household plant that's growing is muktza on Shabbos. You mentioned this din already. Cut flowers are not muktza on Shabbos. But a plant that's still growing is completely muktza on Shabbos. Type of plant food, fertilizer, that's all muktza. Any tool which is made to cultivate, do for gardening, is keli shemalachta le'isr. So you can move it if you need tzarech gufay or mekayim, if you need the place or the thing itself. What? If the flowers are in a vase, or vase, whichever way you pronounce it, are not muktza. But you can't put them into water on Shabbos. You could take it out, but then you could put it back in. If it was taken out on Shabbos, you could put it back in on Shabbos. But if like we mentioned the other day, so you're having a guest Shabbos afternoon, and they bring you a bouquet of flowers, or they come Friday night, they bring you a bouquet of flowers, and you're expected to put it into a vase or vase, whatever. So you're allowed to. They're not muktza, but you can't fill it with water. because you can't put water into plants, anyway. But even flowers, you're not allowed. You could return it. Like you can't put a lulav into water on Yom Tif either, unless it was in your water when Yom Tif started. You could put it back into water, but you can't take a lulav on Yom Tif and put it into water.
Has to be the same water. You're filling it with the same water.
No.